Dear friends, on behalf of Ignited Minds by PHF, I welcome each one of you to this grand 75th session of Guruji ke Sath Guruvar. Today, it is my absolutely great honor and good fortune to introduce the speaker. He is, our Guruji ke Guruji, like he is our Guruji. And he's none other than the one and only Dr. Motiwala sir from Nasik. He is a founder, trustee, Dean of Motiwala Homeopathic Medical College of Nasik. He has a rich experience of more than 40 years in the field of homeopathy. Sir has done his MD and he's also passed the CCMP exam in the first batch with the same enthusiasm of a student. Even at this age, he's not stopped learning. He's done all GNM courses and he's got a mastery over it. During the first wave of COVID, it was under Sir's guidance that Malegaon became COVID-free. He is a wonderful human being and a great teacher. And we are very fortunate because he's taught us organon and we will never forget his lectures, the way, difficult aphorisms were explained in such a simple manner. And since ours was the second batch of Motiwala College, we had a great good fortune to see him as a teacher, friend, and we will always cherish the moments of our trips with Motiwala sir. So, the list goes on and on. I can just go on talking, but it would be unfair. Let's really, keep ourselves muted so that we don't miss a single word of what sir says. So without wasting any, further time, let's welcome Motiwala sir with a big round of applause. Welcome, sir. Good evening. It's a great good fortune to see you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Manisha, for all the sweet words that normally come from a daughter. And so maybe most of it was biased also. But I'm grateful for your kind words. So today I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic, which I have tried to introduce twice before so far, and which has been very dear to my heart since the day I came to recognize about this wonderful science of the Germanic New Medicine. And although now this Germanic New Medicine is being discussed in different names, because they have also divided into different schools, but the one I'm following is the learninggnm.com, which was founded by Caroline Marcolin and Dr. Dr.Hammer of Germany, who was an oncologist himself, had started it. We will wait for the slides, I think. First, we continue. Finish it. So friends, the GNM seminar by itself is normally, are we still online?
Yes.
Diagat, are we still online? Hello, Naina. Naina. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. So what I have tried to do, that when the first time I heard about GNM was with Dr. Vijayakar, Praful Vijayakar, and I was very thrilled when I actually got to in a seminar with Dr. Vijayakar, and in one of the slides he talked about Dr. Hammer, and I was immediately intrigued, and I went to Canada. 3 months later, I went to Austria, then again to Canada twice, and tried to understand this concept of GNM and how it complements homeopathy. As a matter of fact, I always thought that homeopathy is the final. There is nothing beyond the organon of medicine. And when I came across, and the organon always there was a question to me. And I always had a big tussle with my teacher of organon, who was my principal at that time also. And my question always to him was, if miasms are the fundamental causes of diseases, what causes the miasms? How do the miasms come about? And I was never satisfied from some of the answers that were there in our books out of which some said it was intrinsic, some said it came from our ancestors, some said it was gene-based or genetic-based, or also it would happen due to some infections that we get. But ultimately, when I came to GNM, it came to the concept of conflicts. And conflicts happen in our lives continuously. And they are resolved also many a times at the same time. The very next moment they get resolved. But there are some conflicts that don't get resolved. And those are the conflicts that cause disease. And Dr. Hammer, again like Dr. Hahnemann, he says that disease are a biological significant program, a significant biological program that our body plays to help the body overcome the conflict. Now just think over about this. So he says that everything that happens in our body in the form of a disease is not a disease, but it is a significant biological special program which is to help you to overcome your conflict. Very interesting. So to understand this, we need to understand some of the 5 biological laws that Dr. Hammer has given. Now, we are not going to deal with the whole seminar of GNM. We have very short time. My topic today was, how do I relate GNM to homeopathy? So I'm going to go one by one and we'll start with the slides. I think Ravi will help us to start with the slide. So this is a complete new paradigm in disease learning, not very much for the homeopaths, because we are already in a new paradigm. We always understood that symptom is the external manifestation of the internal derangement of the vital force. Now we are going to talk about what deranges the vital force. So what deranges the vital force is the conflicts that happen in our life. Are we having some problems starting the slide? Yeah, okay. So this learninggnm.com is a website of Dr. Caroline Marcolin. It's open to all, and it helps you to start understanding a conflict related to a specific organ or a disease. So when you want to do that, you can always refer to this website. But maybe I'm going to try to help you understand it in a more easier way. And that is what we are going to do now. So GNM helps us to uncover the causa causalis. So we all talked about the fundamental cause of disease as miasms. Now it's what causes the miasms, the cause of the causes. So that is what we are going to try to understand. And we say that a conflict that happens in our life, which is sudden, which is shocking, was not expected, and it has really disturbed you in a shocking way. It is isolated. It's not something that happens to a person again and again and again. It is something that was not expected in your life, and it is dramatic as well. It has caused a whole change in your lifestyle. So these are the criteria that can be termed to use the word conflict. Now, when we talk about conflict, so you can either be in a conflict active phase in your life, or you can be in a phase of conflictolysis, where your body has started resolving the conflict. And one very interesting thing over here is that in the conflict active phase also you have symptoms, and in the phase of conflictolysis also you have symptoms. So you need to know that when your patient comes to you, whether your patient is conflict active or whether your patient is already in the state of conflictolysis. Now, I think we will stay on the second slide. I hope I have enough time today. But how do I know whether the patient is conflict active or whether he is already in the phase of conflictolysis? It was very interesting. Some of my students who are here on this in this group will realize that whenever I took a case, I had a tendency to hold my patient's hand. And I really never understood why. And always I tried to feel the heat of the palm. But I really, for me, it was an understanding of the vital force, of course, a very broad understanding of the vital force. But then when I started studying GNM, it became very interesting. It became very interesting because it showed that if you are conflict active, your palms will be cold. So when you touch the palm of the patients, usually they are colder than your, or if you are not conflict active, of course. But otherwise, your patient's palm, when you touch it, your hands, when you touch, you will find them to be a little cold, on the colder side. And the more cold they are, the larger the conflict content of the patient. So that is one thing. Then the second thing is that is your patient complaining of sleeplessness? And especially if your patient says, the doctor, I stay awake from 3 to 5 a.m., of course, a nextvomica symptom, that is a symptom of conflicto activity. Your mind, you wake up in the middle of the night and try to find solutions to your conflict. So you see that that mind is tormented by that conflict. Especially if you read aphorism number 143, it very well describes a conflict. I was very thrilled when I saw that aphorism. And if you have a chance, if you can read it, can we see if you can, organelle of medicine is on this side. So it's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting to see that the person wakes up in the middle of the night to try to resolve his conflict. Then the next symptom is loss of weight. The patient's appetite is lost. The patient's hormonal secretions, especially the ones related to anxiety, they are very high. And the patient feels very low. He feels restlessness. So that is a sign of your patient being conflict active. And then the biological law number 2 explains the symptoms that would happen in the different kinds of conflicts. Now, of course, again, that is a challenge, but I'll see if I can cover that also. And in the phase of conflictolysis, your patient remains in a state of vagotonia. In the state of conflict activity, he remains in the state of sympathicotonia. And in the normal state, you are in the state of normotonia, where your sympathicotonia is during the day and your vagotonia is during the night. But in the active phase, you are constantly in a state of sympathicotonia. That is why your body is getting tired, your mind is getting tired, and you're developing symptoms. I know this is too much. I know I'm going too fast. I'm sorry about that. But of course, you can take your questions for me, and I'll try to answer them once I finish with this. In the state of conflictolysis or conflictoresolution, in that state, you are in a state of vagotonia. So that is, you are very drowsy. Your patient tends to sleep a lot. We have seen many of our cancer patients, once we start dealing with them on the basis of biological laws, we have found our patients to say that they can sleep up to 16 to 18 hours. They tend to sleep a lot. They tend to lose a lot of water from their body. That is, the urination increases significantly, even it may be diarrhea that happens. And we have seen that in our patients. In the beginning, we tell them that please do not disturb anything without asking us. Then you find that in the nights also they sleep very well, their appetite improves, their weight starts increasing. And the most important thing is when you hold the hand, you will see that the warmth is returning. And that is a very, very important sign that your patient is in a state of conflictolysis or conflictoresolution. Now your question is how do we bring the patient in the case into the stage of conflictolysis? Dr. Hammer says one simple solution. And he says the patient only needs to acknowledge it. The moment he acknowledges that this is the cause of my conflict, he starts into the phase of conflictualisis. The second thing that you can do is help him downgrade his conflict. So by showing him that he has this conflict, but people have had worse than this situations. Things could have been worse than this, or things could have changed because of this. He goes into a state of downgrading the conflict. And as he downgrades the conflict, he goes into healing. Now, this is again a very big topic. There may be a lot of counseling, which we homeopaths are very good at. But the most important thing is acknowledgement. The patient, you should be able to see that the patient acknowledges, he says, Dr. Saab, yes. And especially when we talk about the conflict and your patient weeps, we know we have put him in the state of acknowledgement. So this was the biological law 2, the law of conflictoactivity and conflictolysis, the law of sympathikotonia, vagotonia, and in a healthy state, the state of normotonia. I will move further then. Yeah, okay. Now the third biological law is very interesting. He says the moment a conflict happens in your life, at that very moment, it affects your psyche. It causes a hammer herd. There is a hammer herd in the brain which can be identified on a CT scan. And at that same time, that part of the brain where this hammer herd has occurred controls a certain organ's activity. And that activity of that particular organ would be disturbed. And that was what we will call as the special biological significant program, or the significant biological special program, which we also call as dis-ease. Okay, so we had now imagine something happens in your life. First thing is, it goes to your psyche, it hits the brain, which can be identified on a CT scan, and it starts affecting that organ where the pathology would immediately start. Okay, so that is the third biological program, the third biological law, which says that a conflict impacts that organism at the 3 levels simultaneously on the psyche, the brain, and the organ also. Okay, so we move further. Okay, now food for thought. Yes, this is something that, we as homeopaths, of course, our first reaction is to oppose it. And I tried to oppose it for a long time. And now I've put it out to all my homeopathic friends to start thinking about it. So when you study the learninggnm.com, you will understand that the conflicts that happen on the ectoderm produce certain symptoms, of which the functional disbalance or the functional reduction is an important factor of all conflicts that affect the ectoderm. And mostly the conflicts related to the ectoderm are the separation conflicts. Similarly, the endoderm, which starts from our the whole of the opening of the oral cavity to the anal region, the ectoderm is related to psychosis, the psychotic miasm. And here it is termed as the morsel conflict. So it may be likened to a morsel that we take, and then as the morsel moves into our system, Similarly, that project or that work that you have undertaken or that activity in your life that has happened would be affected. So we are going to see a case, one case of esophagus, CA of the esophagus. And in that case of esophagus, CA of the esophagus, we are going to discuss this morsel conflict in more details. So endoderm is related to all morsel conflicts. Morsel is nivala that we eat. And then the third is your mesoderm, and especially the new brain, the whole system that developed in our body. So, and the mesoderm is our whole skeletal system, the bones and the muscles and the nerves and the vascular system. All these come in our mesoderm. And the mesoderm is the syphilitic miasm. And the conflict related, no, I think I'm still going to be there. And the conflict related to the mesoderm is a self-devaluation conflict. This self-devaluation may have been caused due to various reasons, which include insults, indignations, injustices suffered, feeling of being worthless, feeling of being ignored, feeling of being abandoned, feeling of being ignored. You know, everything comes under self-devaluation. So these three, this is something for you all to think about. So what causes SORA is a conflict related to separation. What's separation? Separation can be of different kinds. Separation can be physical. Separation can be of separation felt mentally by the patient. Psychoses are the conflicts that are related to your morsel. They are related to anything that happens with your endoderm. And then, of course, we have conflicts that can be a combination of more than one incident. And that is why you may have more than one germ layer being affected. And that is why we have complex miasms at the same time. I think, I hope I'm not going too fast. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay. So then the question that came was, what about individualization? Perfect individualization. What better way to explain individualization other than conflicts? Because we may have 5 people going through a conflict to the same conflict simultaneously. A very commonly used example is 5 women going through a divorce. And when they are going through a divorce, or it can be a woman and some man and some women going through a divorce, and one of them will get cancer of the kidneys, one of them will get affection of the liver, one of them will be affected at the cardiac level or the coronary level, one of them will be affected at the endoderm level. This will be decided by the constitution of the patient, by the diathesis of the patient, by the temperament of the patient, also by the environment in which they are living. It could be some of them would be intrinsic, some of them would be extrinsic, and this is what explains the individuality, the individual reaction of the patient to that conflict. So here you will have to understand the reaction of the patient. You will try to understand his sensation to that conflict, what he really feels about that conflict. What at that moment when he thinks about that 20 years back incident, what does it make him feel right now? And understanding the feelings of the patient. When you take all these things, this is when homeopathy gets completed. This is where you will find your rubrics. This is where you will find the symptoms on which you as a homeopath can prescribe. So then, of course, we took help of some of our dear homeopathic friends, and we tried to understand what are some of the conflicts in our materia medica that I could relate to a self-devaluation conflict, SDC. And so these are some of the thoughts that came to our mind and which we can use. So you are already looking at it, and I know we all can read very well, so I'm not going to read them for you. But they are very interesting. Feeling of the inferiority complex, the want of self-confidence which has come because of his bad schooling. Because the teacher in the school has made this child always feel a lack of confidence, or the father or the mother or the uncle or the auntie, someone has behaved with him constantly, that he has come to this level where he feels self-devalued. There could be delusions that he is worthless, delusion that poor she is because of the way people have reacted to her. It could be intrinsic or it could be even extrinsic. So all these symptoms that you see over here, we have a lot of symptoms that we could, rubrics that we could use for a separation conflict. And the cases that we have seen, we have never failed to find the conflict. You know, it was like, I remember when my students, we went to the villages and we tried to do case taking. And during the casing, the students would come and say, "No, doctor, sir, kuch bolta hi nahi hai patient. Patient kuch bolta hi nahi hai." Even now I have this problem. When the student comes during casing, they know, he says only headache, nothing else. And that is the failure on our part to be able to elicit the conflict. So you will first and foremost have to, I start my case and I say I do homeopathy, which is a little different from what you must have faced before. And then I talk about the GNM things. And I tell them, and many a times I've seen patients agree to it and they shake their heads. And then you know that he knows what we are talking about. So you need to explain to the patient that my questions that I'm going to be asking you might seem a little different, but it is because I'm going to try to find out the causalis of your disease. I'm going to try to pinpoint why it has happened. And that is the question your patients have with you. Your patients ask you, "Doctor, ye kyun hua? Doctor, ye kyun hua?" And then we were very happy saying, "Ye miasm ki wajah se hua." And then he would keep in his mind and say, "But miasm kyun hua?" And now we go ahead and say, "Yeah, this is something that has happened in your life." And remember one thing, if your patient is not able to tell it, ask the spouse. If the spouse is not able to tell it, ask the mother, ask the father, ask someone who's very close to the patient. And it never goes wrong, because many a time we have seen people, they try to ignore the conflict. They don't want to talk about the conflict. And that is a very common thing. Like I remember a patient who came to me with gastric ulcers, and it was very bad. So I went and told him कि अंकल आप बताइए आपको गुस्सा किस पे है? मैं कभी गुस्सा करता हूँ? मैं तो देखो कितना खुश रहता हूँ, कितना हंसता हूँ, कितना ये करता हूँ. मैं कभी किसी से गुस्सा नहीं होता. मैं तो, and then his son says, बड़े चाचा के बारे में बोलो ना. And he shouts that वो तो मर गया मेरे लिए, and उसकी बात मत करो, and don't, you know. So this shows that he was, and had I only stuck at that, I would have lost my conflict or trying to find the rubric that I am looking for. And then this, when the child, the son just talks about it, it shows how much suppressed anger is there within. Sometimes you have them start crying the moment you talk about the conflict. And this will come with experience. I have been now with GNM for the last 12 years, and I have attended a number of their seminars in Austria and as well as in Canada. And they have, every year they have a gathering, and even you can join them. But one problem that we had with the GNM people learning GNM.com is they are not ready to accept me as a homeopath. So unless you go and say, you know, I'm not using homeopathy, I'm only using your theory, but that would be a lie, because we as homeopaths know that only homeopathy can complete GNM. And GNM is very much complemented our homeopathy is very much complemented by the knowledge of GNM. So can we share, now these are the morsel conflicts. Can we go back? Yeah. So now what causes constipation? So there are conflicts that are related to, excuse me using the word, but we call it a shit conflict. So something that the patient felt like did not want to happen in his life. So that, or diarrheas that come out because of indignations. This is related to the more, we have used mind symptoms also, then we have used the rectum, the throat, and the stomach, and it can be all the other organs of the body where the thing is related. And okay, this is a constellation conflict. I've just come over here to like status asthmaticus, status epilepticus, schizophrenias, and all other mental diseases that are there are constellations. And constellations are some things that have happened, more than two conflicts happening on either side of the brain. Now, of course, I'm just going to touch this. This is a topic of 3 days itself, constellations. And the constellations are the causes of many of the mental diseases. So, and these are the diseases that are related to more than one conflict and happening on the either side of because the brain, we know, has got two hemispheres. And in these two hemispheres, when these constellations happen, in both the hemispheres, then they go into the form of these constellations. So this was just to talk about another topic altogether. Okay, so yeah, we have come to the end of it. And now, so what am I doing with using of GNM? Okay, so in repertorization, since the last, not very long, but about 5 years, 5 to 6 years, I have come out with this, I would say, theory. Yeah, theory would be the right word, where I have always believed, and of course, there are many great homeopaths who have talked about, including Vithokas, who has talked about using only 7 rubrics in repertorization. And then you can add, once you have removed 2 or 3 of the symptoms, then you add another 2 or 3 of the remaining symptoms, and then again you add another 2 or 3 of the remaining symptoms, and you bring about the complete cure. But the first repertorization that we try to do, I have always believed in not having more than 5 to 7 symptoms. And then after I learned GNM, I came to an understanding of what should be those 7 symptoms that I want to have. And first, I gave a lot of importance. Only to GNM symptoms. But of course, I understood that that was not a totality, and that would be against the principles of totality. So, of course, when you have done a good case taking, and you have seen that you come out with so many symptoms, and a very good homeopath may come out with 10 and 15 rubrics and try to apply these 10 and 15 rubrics, and you will be very lucky if you go anything beyond the few of the polycrest medicines, like sulfur, lycopodium, Merxol, pulsatilla, and you stick in those natramur and sepia and those 10 or 12 remedies only. And this becomes very misleading. And we know that we have all practicing homeopaths, and we have come to realize that no, that is not the way of doing it. So, of course, we take all the possible rubrics, all the possible symptoms that you want to repertorize over here, and you may write them down. And then we try to prioritize them. And in my understanding of the 7 symptoms that I want to do, friends, I am open to criticism. I would criticize myself also at this stage. There are a long time to go, a long way to go, and try to purify this understanding of mine. But then I came to which 7 symptoms? So, of course, the first 2 over here we have said the mental and the physical generals of the patient. So that is what constitutes your patient. So you select any two of your mental generals or physical generals. I'm a very big fan of my dear Dr. Kent. As a student, I think that was the first materia medica that I ever got. And I remained very loyal to him. And then the second two symptoms, the first and second, third and fourth two symptoms should be your GNM reaction. Now let me try to elaborate this. How do I select my GNM reactions? So friends, when you are doing the case taking, first and foremost, always reach GNM towards the end. Do not try to elicit the GNM conflict or the DHS. Dr. Hammer calls this the Dirk-Hammer syndrome. Dirk was the name of his son who died in a hunting accident, and he was shot by a prince of that country, of Denmark. And when he was killed, it came as a blow to Dr. Hammer because the son was 18 years old. And Dr. Hammer developed a cancer of the testes. And when he developed this cancer, he was an oncologist. He was sure there was no cause for him to get cancer. And this happening, he felt is surely because of the death of my son. And so he opened up over 40,000 cases in the hospital, cancer cases, and studied all those cases, called them up. Of course, they had died, so he called up the relatives, the friends, the family, and tried to understand the conflicts in each of the cancer. And that is, he started in 1978. And then he came up with these biological laws. Now, when you see a GNM, when you come to the end and you are ready, you have understood the symptoms, and the symptoms related from that, you can understand what the conflict is. So is it related to the kidneys? Is it related to the liver? Is it related to the stomach? Is it related to the bones, the muscles, the tongue, whatever the patient has come to you for? Those symptoms, from that you can try to understand the biological use of that organ. And when you try to understand the biological use of that organ, then you can understand what must have been the situation to have created a similar use. I know. This is going to be a little difficult for you to understand, but let me say, like the stomach, I think we will read over there. No? Yeah, so a conflict. Now, if a patient has come to you with something to do with the tongue, then what has happened to the tongue? If it is a growth, if it is a tumor on the tongue, he needs to tell many things. He has not been able to tell many things. And because of that, this has happened. So what is it that has been suppressed? What is it that he had to tell and he could not tell? Is the way you go, is the way you try to ask the patient the question. Like anything happening with the teeth is cannot bite back conflict. So somebody told him something, somebody did something, and he could not react to it. He could not bite back to that person. That person has bitten him, but he tried to, he had to bite back, but he could not. That is why he clenched his teeth, and that is why the symptoms of the teeth have come. Or it may be related to the esophagus, it may be related to the hand, it can be related to the stiffness of the hands. When we know it is related to stiffness, it is arthritis related, we know that has been a self-devaluation. Self-devaluation, trying to hold on to something. One very important thing that if you are taking notes, please, I want you all to talk, I'm going to talk about is the laterality, the law of laterality. In the law of laterality, it says that for a right-handed person, a person doing everything with the right hand, in such a person, from the pyramidal tract, after the crossing of the pyramidal tract, everything when we come down from there is a crossover. So then in a crossover, In a right-handed person, anything happening on his left-hand side is related to his mother, or anyone playing the role of his mother, or anyone he feels has accepted to be his mother, his children, or everyone that he takes to be playing the role of his children, or he likens them to his children mentally. And the third is his nest. I'm using the word nest. I'm not using the word house. I'm not using the word only home. I'm saying nest. Nest is the ghosla of the bird. So anything over there, and his siblings, brothers and sisters, they all come on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is his partner or her partner, the spouse, the father, anyone playing the role of the father, the spouse or the partner in his business itself, his source of income, his occupation, the occupation that helps him earn his bread is the left-hand side, the right-hand side is the business, and the house, the father and the business is everything on his right-hand side. Okay, now you go on relating. So the shoulders is cannot take the load. Elbows is trying to push away or even trying to hold. The hips are again a weight-bearing organ. The knees are the performance thing. The ankles is cannot dance to the tune. The feet from the tibia, the fibula, from the knee downwards is wants to kick the person or wants to kick something away from him. And then again, the right and the left-hand side will make it more clear. Today's lecture is more like a teaser. It was a seminar we had for 3 days, and which I am trying to do it in 1 hour. So please bear with me. There are movies that we have for 3.5 hours, and they do it in 3 minutes. And if you are successful in teasing the person, then you are accomplished your goal. So the GNM, when you relate the GNM, the patient should be shocked. The patient asks me, "Aap astrology karte ho kya? How do you know about this? How do you know this happened in my life? And why did you come to this point?" I remember one patient that I was dealing with, and I've told this to my friends who have heard before, and I was also very shocked. And I asked my patient, "Why do you hate your mother?" And this patient looked at me. First, he acted to be angry with me. And he says, "Aisa ho sakta hai kya, doctor?" And he said, "Aisa agar nahi hai, to go back to the 4 homeopaths you have come from. But if you have come to me, you'll have to tell me about this. And this is what my science says, that you hate your mother." And we were perfect. He had every reason to hate his mother. When this happens, you ask them, "What do you feel about this? What is the sensation?" You see the reaction of the patient, of how the person has reacted when you have touched the GNM. And those are the rubrics that you will select, and not 1, 2. Another very interesting thing that Dr. Hammer says.
It's 5:45.
Good. I think I've finished. Another very interesting thing Dr. Hammer says is every metastasis, so-called metastasis, is not a metastasis. It is an additional conflict that the person goes through. It is another disease that the person has gone through. It is another significant biological special program that his body has started playing. So your GNM could be more than 1, could be 2. Imagine a patient goes to a doctor, he has only been having pain in the stomach, and today some endoscopy and all is done, and now the patient says, "I have bad news for you. The moment this bad news you tell the person, a sensation starts in his body, and then the patient says, you have cancer. The doctor says, you have cancer. And here the patient has started cancer in the lungs. Fear, panic, flight is the conflict of the lungs. Or he suddenly gets worried about his children, or she gets worried about her children. What will happen to my children? Who will take care of my children? The cancer will start in her breast. The right brain, the left breast, if it's children, what will happen to my family, my husband, and how will he survive, or how will he take care, will happen in the right breast. So this sensation of your patient is very important. The reaction of the patient in that conflict is very important. And those are the next two symptoms that I would like to take. So the GNM related symptoms are the next two symptoms I would like to take. And then the next two symptoms after this are the one next two. Yeah, no, right. The next two, no, it's here only, correct. And then the next two, that is the fifth and the sixth rubric or that you are going to select, are related to the particulars of the patient, and especially those particulars which are the most troublesome at the moment, which have come the most latest. According to Herring's law of cure, we know very well, the symptoms should disappear in the reverse order of their appearance. Your car should be put in the reverse gear if you have selected your conflict properly, if you have acknowledged, the patient has acknowledged the conflict properly, and you have selected the remedy, the totality of the remedy, your vehicle has to go in the reverse gear. So the two most prominent particulars that the patient is talking to, I usually ask them, what would you like me to address now? And then the patient says, doctor, please do something about my pain. Or the patient says, do something about this burning, or do something about this stiffness, or do something about, and those are the symptoms that will be the next two that I would prefer to take, and they are the particulars of the patient, and more so if they are following the Herring's law of direction of disease development. And then the last one, the seventh one, is the one that would cover the general modality and then the GNM modality. No, the GNM modality is not is one thing that we have been discussing, but we have not yet confirmed. But we have considered over here one significant modality of the patient, or the significant PQRS, peculiar, cure, rare, and strange symptom that the patient has got. That would be the last one that I would like to select, because usually this is the confirmatory test of your patient. So once you have selected these 7 patients, you apply it. You apply it in your repertorization. And so it's more specific that you are doing. And we have been doing it more consistently in the last 3 to 5 years, and we have been very, very happy with the results. Now, this was one very interesting case. I'm trying to go very fast with it. My time is almost up, and I have 7 minutes more, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the case of a cancer patient. Yeah, go next. And he was a case of esophagus, cancer of the esophagus. And this patient had come to us at the very last stage. And he had gone through all kinds of different treatments, including cyber knife. You know, no, I think if you can wait back, go back. The cyber knife. And that cyber knife had promised to cure it completely. He had spent a significant amount of it. At that time, it was only being done in Bangalore. And he had gone to Bangalore to do it. And just 8 months after doing that, or 6 months after doing that, the cancer came up. And then he had given up completely. And his sister in Canada, who was also my patient, she insisted, and they were from Nashik, and she said, you have the doctor right over there, why don't you go to him? And so he came back, he came to us. And I'm more interested over here in talking about the conflict that was there. So if you can move on to the conflict. Yeah, just 1 minute, go back, see. Go back. Let me go back. No, you go. So you can see the other associated symptoms that were there: diabetes, hypothyroidism, liver cirrhosis, because of course over here, other than the conflict, he was a very, very alcoholic person. He was very, very rich and had a lot of liking to alcohol. And that was, of course, other than the conflict, of course. So yes, he was a heavy smoker, and everything that was possible he had done in his life. And so when we asked about what was the conflict incidents, it was very clear that he is having conflict of the esophagus. So there is something that has got stuck. He cannot swallow it and he cannot bring it out. And so I told him directly that this is what has happened in your life. Now can you go ahead, and now can you go back? And what is that? What has happened to you? And he looked at me and he says, you're sure you know what you're talking about? I said, I'm sure what I'm talking about. Something that has happened, now you cannot, na nigal sakte ho, na gir sakte ho. And then he talked about this conflict of his, in which I think we can move to the next slide, in which he said, I went to my home, to my wife's hometown, and over there I told my father that I want to see that plot of land that is there in my wife's name. So the husband was trying, the father of his wife was trying to avoid taking him over there. But then he insisted in the evening, he said, chalo nahi jayenge ghumne ko, chalo tumko chalna hai to. And they took him to that land, which was supposed to be a big land. And when they take him over there, he sees all buildings are constructed. And everything has been constructed, and it's all the land is no more. And he says, how come this happened? And they said that, 3 years back when your wife had come over here, she signed all the papers in my name and her brother's name, and she gave it to us. And then we sold it to a developer, and this developer has done this construction. And he says, I was shocked. And I was angry that my wife gave away this land without ever asking me. Not that I wanted it, but this was not fair what she had done. And then I said, so what did you feel? He says, I'm stuck. Now what can I do? It is already sold, it is already gone, the land is, all the construction has happened. This is a very typical situation where you can see the stuck conflict that is there. Nor he can regurgitate or bring up the morsel, nor can he take it, he can accept. He could not accept this fact. And he says, I was so angry that same day when we came back, without telling my wife or my father-in-law, I just took the car and drove back to Nasik. So now you see, then I asked him, so now what do you feel? He says, I hate my damn father-in-law. I hate him. I cannot bear to look at him. So you can see these, we use these symptoms way back about 3 or 4 years back. And I tell you, we got a very good result with this case. All his cancers were controlled. But unfortunately, we lost him. And that the loss was a mechanical thing. In this case, what had happened, you must have seen this video of his also in many of my testimonials. In this case, the doctor decided to operate his esophagus because it had burnt. And I told him it is burnt because of that cyber knife operation that you have done. And the big surgeons in Bombay, a very honest surgeon in Bombay, had told him, leave it. Now that you are rid of your cancer, you leave it and let it take its time to heal. It had become like a parchment paper. So he could swallow things. And he said, if you try to do any surgery, it was right behind the aorta. And to do that surgery, you would have to open the thorax and everything. But because it was right behind the aorta, if we tried to do anything, we could puncture the aorta. And unfortunately, they tried to do the surgery. I was present in the surgery. I saw them struggling with that surgery. And 2 days after the surgery, exactly as the Bombay doctor had said, the aorta ruptured. And in front of us, this person bled to death. But the wonderful thing that we had cured his cancer. All the reports had shown that the cancer was no more active. And he was gaining weight and everything was happening. So this is what we had, this case was there, and where the remedy was selected specifically on the basis of the 7 rubrics. Okay, these are, of course, you will see my remedies. I use a lot of supplementary medicines, also intercurrent medicines, also in cancer, because these are cases that come to us only in the last stage. And so I think we can end this slide. I think anything else? Done? We are done? Okay, right in time. And if Dr. Liaquat allows, I can take 2 or 3 questions.
Sir, as many lectures, as many questions as you want.
Yeah,
So,
please.
please.
Yeah.
5 participants.
Okay, very nice. Yes, so friends, any questions that you all have? I know I was very fast, and you all have to excuse me for that. And I'm very happy that I was able to finish it in time. Yeah. Yes, I think Manisha is the anchor over here, or Liaquat, you are the anchor.
Manisha, sir, any reason why you drink the water through copper vessels?
I try everything that comes new in life, and I am a good experimenter. And of course, at home also I have kept it, and I'm doing it for the last 1 year. Not that I have yet experienced something very significant, but when I do, I will share it. And especially they have come as gifts, so when it comes, it is welcome to be used.
Yeah, always. It's God sent always. Gifts are God sent.
Thank you.
Somebody just wants to know the rubrics that you had selected.
But they
Yeah.
can see that in. Okay, Nishu, they can see those rubrics on YouTube. They can go back and see that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it will be a revision for them if they watch the lecture again on YouTube.
Yeah.
Sir, one query about the causa causalis. Don't you think the reaction of the patient to a specific situation, what you're calling causa causalis, itself depends on the miasm, the predominant miasm that he has?
Very, very interesting. But over here, the miasm, the reaction of the patient is I believe to be the individuality of the patient.
Exactly.
But
so individual depends on miasm.
I like this thought of yours also, that the way he would react to that conflict could also
Exactly.
that could also be an interesting thought. Yeah, I need to see how related. Yeah, very interesting. I think we should note this. Very nice.
Because every person who goes through fright or fear doesn't suffer from cancer.
Yeah, of course. No. That is where the individuality comes. And
Exactly.
Don't count cancer. Sorry, Liaquat, this Dr. Hammer's 5th biological law, it says any disease is
Exactly.
caused by conflict.
Exactly. So the reaction to the conflict is what is individualization. And individualization depends on miasm.
And the individualization comes, the different temperament, diathesis also comes out of the extrinsic factors.
Right.
Person goes through. His reactions are also a result of the conflicts that he has gone through.
Right.
You get my?
Because I'm still pondering over the discussion we had in your cabin about causa causalis. So this is what I thought.
No, so causa causalis also has developed because of his conflicts. The way he's reacting today is a result of the conflicts that he must have gone through in his childhood. The conflicts that he has gone through in his even in the womb of his mother. One very interesting thing Dr. Hammer talks about is that the fetus can also manifest the symptoms, the SBS, the significant biological program, on behalf of his mother. So you see, many a times the mother, she's used, she has seen her mother being beaten all the time. So when for her, it is normal. She is resolving the conflict. But the fetus inside might react to it. And when he's born with these anomalies, or he's born with these diseases, or he may develop these diseases. So we see many times these disease like this kidney problems the children that come out with in infancy is a result of what the mother has gone through. Even a child in the house can play the conflict on behalf of the mother or the father or someone that is very dear to him. That's my point. So what you are talking about, the miasm that he is manifesting now, is a result of the conflicts that he has gone through in his childhood.
Right.
Of course, this is the very, that is why I said it's a food for thought, and I'm getting very good results. And I'm really understanding this, if I'm going to relate miasms, I will relate them to these three types of conflicts. So if I see in this patient that find the syphilitic miasm very dominant, I know that there is somewhere something like a self-devaluation conflict. And this self-devaluation conflict is a very large topic. Is a very, very so is a result of these conflicts. And once you start practicing it, you become like an astrologer. You can pinpoint what has happened. When you see many of the symptoms of the similar kind, you are able to, like cancers in different parts of the intestine relates to different members of the family. So conflict in the pancreas, especially in the tail of the pancreas, is related to the head of the family conflict. And that is what Steve Jobs suffered from.
Yes.
Yeah, you can, I think the friends who wanted the rubric, I have put it up over there for them.
Yeah, it's there. Any questions, guys? Sir is there available for another
Yes,
1
sir.
or 2
Please,
minutes.
once again, please explain about right-handed and left-handed person conflict.
Yeah, sure. Laterality, that is called the law of laterality. And the law of laterality, in case the person is right-handed, in that case, everything on the left, after the crossing over of the pyramidal tract, after that crossing of the pyramidal tract, everything on the left is related to your mother. And when you say mother, it could be anyone whom you take to, you feel like she's my mother. And the mind and your subconscious mind accepts that lady as being your mother. And then it is your siblings, your children, or your brothers and sisters and your children, more so your children. And the third is your nest. When something is happening to your nest, when something is happening to your home, in which you consider to be your stronghold, your fortress, if something is happening over there, this is your left side. And then the right side, the right side is your father, your partner, your spouse, and your business. So whatever is related to your that earning of your livelihood or supporting of your livelihood is related to your right side. Now, again, the organs that are affected also tell you about the conflict. So, especially like for, it is easier to give an example. So for a woman, the breast is a care and worry symptom. So it is not a conflict that happens over here. It is something that she wants to care about. So we have seen many cases in which the mother is worried about her a child or a son. It may not be a small child. I remember a very interesting case in which this lady came to us and she had the cancer of the right breast. So when I said आपके शोहर कैसे? बहुत अच्छे हैं. तो बोला आपको शोहर के लिए क्या टेंशन होता है? क्यों आप शोहर के लिए क्या फिक्र करते हो? And she looked at me and she says, आपको क्यों ऐसा लगता है? I said नहीं, ऐसा कुछ है कि आपको आपके शोहर के बारे में बहुत क्या वो बीमार है क्या? कोई तकलीफ है क्या? She says नहीं, मेरा शोहर रिक्शा चलाता है and when he comes home at night and he is not able to bring enough money to give the mother whose rickshaw it is, she swears at him. और वो इतनी बुरी बुरी बातें बोलती है और उसको खाना भी नहीं देने देती है मुझे. और वो जब ऐसा होता है तो मैं बहुत रोती हूँ. Now this is the cause of the cancer of her right breast. We had another case, one of our students only. The mother came with cancer of the right breast, and when we asked what happened to father, how is he? She said, no, he's very fine. I said, then how did this happen? Something is there about. She said, my father met with an accident, and for 8 days my father was in the hospital. And sir, you will not believe, my mother did not get up from his side. She would go to the washroom and come back and sit, and she would sleep on the chair till my father became conscious, until we brought him home. And then what happened? 1 month later, she developed the breast cancer of the right breast. So I hope I have made the point clear. Dear friend, I hope you got the point.
Yeah, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, friends. It was nice. Thank you, Liaka, for giving me this opportunity to interact with these friends.
Thank you.
And Manisha,
It's an
thank
honor.
you after
Thank
all
you,
this
sir.
year. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. I think it's been an eye-opener, and all of us have really, enjoyed hearing it from you, and hope to hear many more sessions from you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Liaka.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
So good night. Sir, if any of the delegates, doctors, they want to show you some patients, how to contact you?
I'm there in the college, and we have these interns who work with me. So what you want to do?
So we will share your contact number and appointment number so they can call
Okay, yeah, you can share it with
Yeah,
them.
please share with me. So I will put that in the video.
I practice in the college only. I practice in the college only.
Yes, sir.